Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So before we jump into the main video, I was really trying to keep this video under a certain time, so I really didn't jump into a lot of my numbers. But before we actually jump into the video, I do want to say that my longest long-term rental was actually around 12 months, right around the 1 year time frame. And this was a 2013 Infiniti G37 that I paid about $8,000 to $9,000 for, and you heard that right, the guest had it the entire year. Pretty much paid off the whole car. My second longest rental is actually going on right now currently. It began at the end of January, or actually the beginning of February, and it's still currently going on. So it's approaching 7 months, and this is a 2013 Ford Edge that I paid about $6,000 for. And again, this guest is pretty much paid the vehicle off for me. I've had multiple rentals go for 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, and these are just my two of my longest ones. So long-term rentals are definitely out there. They do happen, and I can attest to that. So if you want to increase your chances of finding one of these long-term guests, make sure you watch this video all the way to the end, and don't forget to smash that like button. All right, enjoy the video. What's going on, YouTube fam? Been a minute. So in today's video, I want to talk about a subject that I get a lot of questions about, and that is, how do I find long-term renters for my Turo cars? So I'm gonna show you in this video how you can actually spot a potential long-term renter and how do you keep them. And if this is your first time over here and you like content like this, then feel free to subscribe. Also hit that notification bell so you can be alerted every time I post a new video. So let's jump right into it. So first, let's talk about some obvious reasons that a host would want to find somebody to rent their car longer term. Obviously, it's more money if somebody is renting it higher, you got a higher utilization. But when people keep your car for longer durations, that's less work on you, because the less check-in, check-outs, prepping cars mean more time you have to do other things. And of course, if somebody's renting your car for days, months, then that is going to equal passive income, because all you have to do is check the car in once and that person's going to keep it for a longer time. So that is a form of passive income that you can make from this kind of business. So why is long-term renting beneficial for the guests? Well, if they find a vehicle that they like and they get to keep that vehicle, well, that's an advantage. Also, if they can lock in a price that they're comfortable with paying, that's another advantage. If they have a good relationship with you as a host and you guys work well together, that's another advantage, because to say the least, a lot of hosts and just people in general are not very pleasant to get along with. So if you find somebody that you don't mind working with, then you know, that goes a long way for the guests. But people still don't get it. Why would somebody rent a car for months and months and months? Well, based on my experience, the long-term renters fall into one of these categories. Either they never had a car and never needed one, but all of a sudden they have some new added responsibilities and all of a sudden they need a car. Or two, they had a car at some point, but due to hefty repairs, maybe an engine, a transmission, or something they didn't have the funds for, but they still have to get around, take their kids to school and commute, and they still have responsibilities. A lot of times people start off renting by necessity. They need a car and they don't have a lot of options. Now, the people who rent cars for months and months on Turo, let's just go ahead and clarify it. They most likely don't have the best credit, and they most likely don't have liquid cash to go and just cash out at the car lot. A lot of these people usually go for cheaper cars, but we know all things come with a price. So let's say they had a cheaper car and the car messed up on them and now they can't afford repairs, so they'll go ahead and rent your car. The difference with renting your car is maintenance and repairs are the host's responsibility. Yes, even though they're paying a daily fee to Turo and they're paying all these other fees that come out of it, like protection plan, if anything happens to the vehicle, the host is responsible. Maintenance, tires, brakes, rotors, things like that, the hosts are responsible. So some of these people are just like had bad luck with cars, most likely because they've been buying very cheap cars, so they don't want to keep pouring money into cars and things keep going wrong. So they rather just rent from you, have you be responsible for the maintenance and the repairs. And like I mentioned earlier, people are like, well, why don't they just go cash out on a car? Well, they have no liquidity. They don't have any investments to liquidate. They don't have cash on hand to drop thousands and thousands of dollars on a car, especially now that car prices are through the roof. It makes it even harder for the average person to go and just cash out on a car. But why don't they go and finance? Dealerships have very tight restrictions now that we're going to a recession. So you need like good credit, you need a good down payment, and you know, no history of repos or any of these things. So a lot of these people, they don't fit that criteria. They just don't have the means of financing a car. And at one point, subprime loans would have been available to them, but the banks are cracking down on subprime loans. I talked about this over a year ago, and we're still seeing that trend right now. Subprime loans are considered risky, so a lot of people don't even qualify for those when at some point they could have got a subprime loan. So these people that are renting a car long term, they literally have no other option. Now, it's easy for some people to think that by targeting long-term renters, that us as hosts are targeting people who are in vulnerable positions, or people who are down and out, or all these other crazy mind games your mind will play on you. But like I said earlier, these people don't have a lot of options. So the way I see it, Turo giving these people an option, and us as hosts providing a car for a lower fee, allowing people to be even able to afford that kind of price a day, is helping them out. It's providing value in a way. So now that we cleared up the who and the why, let's jump into how I identify somebody as a potential long-term renter. Contrary to popular belief, somebody might think that if somebody needs a car for, let's say, 3 months, that they'll go on Turo and book the car for 3 months. Let's just say I'm renting my car out for $40 a day. By the time the guest pays my daily fees, they pay Turo daily trip fees, they pay for a protection plan, probably even taxes in some state, that $40 easily turns into $80. So if somebody wanted to book your car for 3 months at $80 a day, that's literally like $7,000 or 7 and some change. Again, these people don't have liquidity on hand. I'm sure if they had $7,000, they would take another risk and cash out on a $7,000 car. But that's not an option for them. So usually how a long-term rental will start is they might just book the car for a day or two. So my first suggestion to you, if you're looking for long-term renters, is to go ahead and allow 1-day rentals. Because from my past experience, I've noticed that people who book for 1 day often do extend the trip to longer durations. But again, these people that fit this criteria, they might only have cash on hand for 1 or 2 days. So by allowing them to get into your car for those 1 or 2 days, you might potentially be opening up the doorway to them extending for weeks and months. But it never starts out as just a 1-month rental. I've only had one person book my car for an entire month just outright. Every long-term renter that I've ever had started off as either a 1 or a 2-day rental, and pretty much what they do is just keep extending daily. So after the guest books the vehicle for 1 or 2 days, usually the day that the reservation is due to end, they'll go ahead and send an extension request, requesting to extend the rental at the same rate. Now, if I notice a guest doing this 2 or 3 times, here's a little trick that I do. I put the car on snooze. Snooze is an option that lets the car be removed from the marketplace, so it's just not available for those dates that you snoozed it. So if somebody was looking for a vehicle and you have your vehicle snooze, it just wouldn't show up in the search results. So if somebody extends the rentals 2 or 3 times, I'll actually go ahead and snooze the vehicle for them just so nobody else can rent it. But you might be thinking, if I'm snoozing vehicles, that might kind of lower my utilization, because if they do bring the car back, I could have had another reservation lined up. Well, yes, that is true, and that's a risk that I'm willing to take, because what I've had in the past is somebody extending the car, let's say 5 or 6 times, and I don't snooze the car, and somebody else rents it. Now, the person who's in the car, the potential long-term renter, they can't extend it anymore because that car has another reservation booked up. So it forces them to return the car, and let's say the new guest picks the car up, rents it for 2 days, and brings it back. So now what you've essentially done is you've taken your potential long-term renter out of the vehicle, and you place somebody else in that vehicle who actually only needs it for 1 or 2 days. Now, you might never see that long-term renter again, because now they might be renting with somebody else. So for me, I'd rather take the risk of snoozing the vehicle, and if they happen to bring it back after a few days or a week, then it is what it is. So now let's talk about pricing. Is pricing different for long-term rentals? Usually the best price that works for long-term rentals is between anywhere from $35 to $50 a day. Now personally, I don't really go below $40, because after my 75-25 split with Turo, I like to take at least $30 home profit. Will I adjust that price for long-term renter? Depends how long they're keeping the car for. So usually what happens is they'll rent the car, they'll pay your daily rate, but if they have the car for, let's say, a month or a couple months, that's when they usually try to come to the negotiation table and try to work out a better price with you. So yes, I will lower my price $5 if they do request it, but that's not $5 in addition to the 3-day discount, 1-week discount, 1-month discount. I don't want discounts to start stacking and then lower my price, because at the end of the day, I want to make a profit. So if a guest approaches me to work out a different price, I'll take off all the promotions. That means 3 days, 7 days, 1-month discounts, and I'll just give them one flat fee. So usually if I'm renting a car for $40, like I said, I really don't go below $40. A lot of my cars are at $45, and then I'll bring it down to $40. I've done $38 before, but this is like on a really cheap car. Usually $40 a day is a good sweet spot. When that time comes and they want to negotiate, I think it's absolutely worth it. Yes, $5 does add up. In a month, that's $150, right? But my time is more valuable than $150, because if I'm doing this times 10, imagine how much time I'm saving by not having to do check-in, checkouts, wait around on guests, verify ID for remote handoffs. It saves me a lot of work, so I don't mind the $5 a day discount. In fact, if I had that option right now, I would take $5 off all my units and let them just keep it. Don't lose a long-term renter over $5 a day. Go ahead and work it out with them. And if they are keeping it longer, then they do deserve a slightly better price than somebody who's just booking it for a couple days at a time. And I should clarify, a lot of this varies based on what kind of car it is. I would never try to do a long-term rental with a luxury car, because obviously maintenance is higher. So I wouldn't entertain reducing prices for these kind of cars. So usually they work with cheaper economy cars. So don't try to do this with any Cadillacs or Jaguars or anything crazy like that. I'm talking about economy cars, cheap economy cars, okay? So let's move on to the next part. Checking on your vehicle. If somebody has your car for 2-3 months, how do you ensure that your vehicle is still in good condition or they're taking care of it? Going back, like I previously mentioned, you only want to do this with certain cars. And first of all, if you have any kind of emotional attachment to your vehicle, then it shouldn't be listed on Turo in the first place. And if you have a luxury car or something nicer, this might not be the car that you want to rent out longer term. If you feel like you have to check on a car, ask yourself, if there's damage to the vehicle and a guest returns your car after 4 or 5 months, can you still not charge for a damage claim? If the car is dirty or the guest smoked in it or trashed it, can you still not charge these fees even though the trip is going on for 3 or 4 months? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. It doesn't really matter if I'm doing a damage claim for a 2-day trip or if I'm doing a damage claim for a 3-month trip. Now, the only thing that matters is to keep your maintenance up. Your oil change, make sure you know your brakes and rotors, tune up, all these things. In that case, I do like the car to come back to me at least every couple months so I can do the oil change and things like that. What I would suggest to you guys is opening up an account with either Jiffy Lube, Pep Boys, Havoline, pretty much setting up an account to where you can be billed through a credit card or ACH. Obviously, it has to be a location that works out for you and your guests, because you don't want to make it so inconvenient that every time they have to get an oil change, they have to come to your house, wait on you. You guys got to jump in the car together and ride down the street. That's too much. Now, as far as mileage goes, you can also request that they put the miles on the invoice, and that gives you an idea how many miles the guest is driving. So which brings me to my next point. Turo allows 200 miles a day. That's for non-deluxe cars. Now, what happens if you find out that the guest is doing, let's say they're not going over the 200 miles, but they are doing 200 miles a day. Now, I'm not gonna lie, 200 miles a day, even though, you know, that's what we have to give to the guests as far as Turo is concerned, most guests only average maybe 100 miles a day, and some do less, some do a little bit over, average 100 miles a day. If a guest is doing 200 miles a day, then, I mean, either they're doing a lot of commuting, they have a large family and everybody's using the car, or they're doing some kind of, you know, Uber Eats or DoorDash or something like that. And I've been through all these situations, so I'm speaking on everything from a point of experience. But let's say somebody's doing 200 miles a day in your car. Now, most of my cars, I don't want them driven 200 miles a day. I feel like that's not worth it. But, you know, that all depends on your situation. Then again, if you have a 2011 car that you've been renting out for 2 or 3 years and you only paid like $4,000 for when car prices were low, now somebody's renting it and it's making you $800 a month or $1,000 a month and they're doing 200 miles a day, then, you know, hey, that's on you. If that was me, I'll let it slide. If I pay $2,000-$3,000 per car and I've been renting it for 2 years, I got all my money back. I made my money 3, 4, 5-fold. Now I guess it's driving 200 miles a day and I'm making $800 a month. Hey, for me, that's still a great deal. It just all depends on the vehicle. It all depends on your position, your plan for the car, you know, your exit strategy on the vehicles. All these things should be taken into consideration. Now, all good things must come to an end, and long-term renters are no different. Sometimes the guest just purchases a vehicle and brings your car back peacefully, and everybody goes their separate way. Who knows, maybe you'll even see them again. And a lot of times they'll even offer you to buy your vehicle, because obviously if they're keeping the vehicle for months, they like the vehicle. Sometimes I've done that also. I let the guests go ahead and buy the vehicle, especially when they've been renting it for a good while. The third way the story could end is they lose their income, they still need your car, and they pretty much go AWOL and just keep your car. Hopefully in this case you have a spare key and a tracker. If the extension request is coming in, then I'm good. As soon as that extension request stops coming, then hey, I need my car back. So you guys have to realize this. At some point you might run through this scenario where your car's not coming back. You have to be professional and be able to pull the trigger when that car's not coming back and pick your car up. It doesn't matter if they've been renting for you for a whole year and everything's been good. The minute the extension does not come in, 24 hours, you can go get that car. So I think we covered all the important parts about long-term renters and how to spot them, acquire them, and keep them. So they don't come by every day, but if you keep doing these things that I mentioned, keep your reviews good, keep your prices competitive, and keep your listings A1, then eventually you'll run into somebody who's willing to keep your car for a longer duration of time. And even after they return it, keep doing these things, rinse, repeat, and surely enough, another long-term renter will come along. Hope you guys got some value out of this video. If you did, smash that like button, hit the subscription, notification bell, drop a comment on anything you want to see me cover as far as Turo goes, or any other video you want to see me cover as a matter of fact, and I'll try to put it out there. And I will catch you guys in the next video. I appreciate you sharing your time with me.